Behind me now are what we expect to be the two main contenders for the GT Championship this season, Porsche and Mercedes. Let's find out how they qualified for this race at Oschersleben, along with all the other cars. Here's Simon Taylor.
Mercedes, champions last year, have 4 of their Husky V12s to defend their title. But the challenge comes from this completely new lightweight car from Porsche. They've won the qualifying battle. Jörg Müller is on pole in the car he'll share with Uwe Alsen. Fastest Mercedes is one of their blue B-team cars, driven by Marcel Thiemann and Jean-Marc Gounon. The British star in the Porsche team is Scotsman Alan McNish. The new car is fast, but can it last?
Porsche have in the past been extremely reliable with their cars coming out of the box. It's always a test. That's what racing's about, and you've got to finish. And we're intending to try and finish, and we're intending to try and finish as high as possible.
In the Mercedes, next to McNish, is last year's Formula 3000 champion Ricardo Zonta. The talented Brazilian is having his first ever GT race. On the row behind and having his umpteenth GT race, the reigning champion in this discipline, Bernd Schneider. In the mighty American Paynos is Australian David Brabham.
We're a bit more competitive than we were last year, and with less people then it obviously helps, but I think we'll get more points than we did last year, that's for sure. I'm hoping that we're going to finish on the podium quite a few times. 911 Porsches run this tight and twisty little circuit.
So the GTs are on their rolling lap. They're making their way round to the start now. Let's join our commentator, Simon Taylor.
The rolling grid is already pouring over the start line, and a Porsche leads 5 abreast into the first corner, but it's Müller's Porsche. From the Mercedes of Thiemann, Schneider making a great start. Then McNish is in 4th place. Bouchou's Mercedes, Zonta is there, Brabham in 7th place in the front-engine Paynos. Just behind him, Jeff Lees, 8th in the McLaren. But Müller is opening up a bit of a lead. And look, there's the silver Mercedes of Schneider going past its teammates straight up into 2nd place. Müller leads. Schneider is 2nd. Then the 2 blue Mercedes taking that wide line into the left-hander behind the pits. A big twitch there from Schneider, who's trying very, very hard indeed. It may be an endurance race, but right from the start on this opening lap, this Porsche versus Mercedes battle is really on. There's a Porsche versus McLaren battle further down. Michael Bartel's this very distinctive silver car with its engine, of course, in the front. Big American pushrod V8 engine, front engine, lots of speed down the straight, not perhaps quite as quick through the corners, and Michael Bartel's Porsche pouncing, as it has pounced already on Jeff Lee's McLaren. And McNish is off! McNish off for GT2 Porsche off! Is that a traffic accident? Did the 2 of them collide? McNish stationary, we're seeing it again. Zonta's Mercedes is there. Zonta's Mercedes apparently spinning McNish round in front of the GT2 Porsche. A cloud of smoke and steam and gravel. Still spurts of flame from the back of the Porsche because the engine's still running. McNish gets it back onto the circuit. There's earth and grass and gravel in the air intake of that car, but McNish is carrying on. He's back on the circuit. This is Bernd Schneider using every inch of the road, plus a little bit that isn't always there, in his pursuit of the leading Porsche. McNish is in the pits, and it looks serious because he's done a U-turn and the mechanics are wheeling McNish's Porsche back into the garage. There's a Mercedes stop also, but for McNish it looks serious. They've got the front bodywork off. This is obviously a problem that has come out of that trip across the grass after the collision with Ricardo Zonta. McNish out Dalmas, his co-driver, in the cockpit. Let's hear from McNish.
Alan, can you tell us what's happening?
We've got a problem with the front floor section, which is vibrating on the straights, anything above 120 kilometers per hour, and it makes the car very, very unstable and dangerous, so we're fixing that.
Meanwhile, here's the lead Porsche, Jörg Müller, coming in for his routine stop. Uwe Alsen, his co-driver, is ready. They're cleaning the windscreen already. Out gets Jörg Müller. In gets Uwe Alsen, swinging his legs into the very tight cockpit of the GT1 Porsche as they refuel the car. Schneider is in now with the number 1 Mercedes. Mark Webber standing by, but Schneider stays in the cockpit, and they can't restart it. They've got a problem restarting that car. They've got the door open again. Uwe Alsen back into the race, and as Alsen rejoins, they still can't restart the number 1 Mercedes. Meanwhile, they've mended the McNish car. Yannick Dalmas taking it back into the race. They've patched up the under tray, and look, they're still trying to restart Bernd Schneider's Mercedes. They're plugging in a slave battery. Now he's got it started. He's got it started. Shut the door. He stalled it again. now it's stalled once more. There's obviously a bad electrical problem. Now I think he's got it started again. They shut the driver's door. Away he goes at last. A disastrously slow pit stop for Bernd Schneider. He goes back into the race, but both the lead Porsches are now back, although the Alan McNish car has lost a lot of time. Now the number 2 car, Ricardo Zonta, out in Ricardo Zonta staying in the race still, and David Brabham has handed over to Eric Bernard in the Penos. All these routine stops happening at 1/3 distance. The Bouchou Maylander Mercedes comes into the pits for an unscheduled stop, and the Alan McNish Porsche still going after its earlier delay. It's now in 7th place. Here's the Thomas Bacheur McLaren losing a bit of bodywork, which flies into the air. Everybody who follows has to take avoiding action. They're still working on that Mercedes in the pits, and in comes now the 2nd place Porsche of Uwe Alz. And it's not a routine stop. He does that sinister turn which allows the mechanics to push the car back into the garage. They're going to work on that car too, just as they did Alan McNish, and a big accident. That's Thomas Bacheur's McLaren being hit very hard by a GT2 Porsche. The McLaren is completely crippled, smashed at the front. The GT2 Porsche has come to a halt. It looks like another traffic accident. I don't know what started that, but Thomas Bacheur still in the car, opening the door now. Michael Kane in the pits, the team manager of Thomas Bacheur's car, watching it all on a TV monitor, no doubt not particularly happy. Now we're going to see a replay. Thomas Bacheur is on the grass, the car all in one piece, but he goes back onto the track. The car spins round straight across in front of the Graham Poulin GT2 Porsche, which smashes into the front of it, and the front of the McLaren is awash with shredded bodywork and steam from broken radiators, and that comes down the pit lane. Zonta comes down the pit lane. We're going to have 3 Mercedes in the pits all at once. One of the Mercedes mechanics nearly getting run over there by Bernd Schneider. Schneider is in his pit. Zonta is in his pit. We're sitting with Schneider as the screen is cleaned. The new wheels go on. And now Schneider is getting out, and his Australian co-driver is about to have his first go in race conditions in the number 1 car. That is Mark Webber. Klaus Ludwig's in the Ricardo Zonta car as well, so both the number 1 and number 2 Mercedes have changed drivers. Slowing down. Now I can see the Porsche with its headlights still ablaze, with its winker going, then moving across to the left, and quite clearly all is not well with that car. Alan McNish nursing it down to the end of the pit lane and trying to get it clear off the track, which he now does. And what a tremendous shame that is. We had such high hopes for Alan McNish's first drive in this new Porsche, but it's all gone wrong after a difficult race, and it now seems that McNish's race is run. No such problems for the Klaus Ludwig Mercedes, which is storming around. Ricardo Zonta got that car in the lead. Klaus Ludwig is carrying on the good work, and Mark Webber! Mark Webber's lost a wheel! The yellow-mirrored Mercedes has lost a front wheel. The wheel is rolling across the runoff area, crashes into the barrier quite harmlessly, fortunately, comes to a halt. But what about Mark Webber? Mark Webber has managed to get that car on 3 wheels. The left front wheel is missing. We see it again. The wheel comes off as he lurches to the left. Fortunately, that's the final corner almost of the lap, and he hasn't got far to go to get back to the pits. And now the Mercedes mechanics are working on that car, no doubt trying to find out why the wheel departed. Is there any damage? The mechanics looking at the hub and trying to see, can they get another wheel on? Can they get him back into the race? He was second. The Gunon team and Mercedes has gone by to take that second place, and as the Mercedes mechanics work, there's McNish's abandoned car. McNish walking back to his pit, but still they're trying to get the number 1 Mercedes back into the race. They've got a wheel on. They're trying to tighten it up, and the air wrench is just spinning round and round and round. There's obviously still a problem there. Mark Webber sitting impassively in the cockpit. Is he going to be able to carry on with his first GT race? They can't tighten the wheel up. Now they're trying a bit of good old-fashioned elbow grease. A great big wrench is put on the wheel nut, and they're determined to get that car back into the race. They've got it started, the wheel is on. Is the wheel going to stay over until it's over? Still Klaus Ludwig reels off these final laps, trying to keep out of the way of the traffic. The surface is now very oily and very slippery, although all sign of the rain has disappeared. And as Ludwig comes over the start-finish straight, ready to gobble up another GT2 Porsche ahead of him, he's got the green Porsche GT1 car, the Bartels car, still running despite that lost bit of bodywork which we saw earlier, and that's several laps behind, but still running in the top 6. Mercedes 1, 2, 3, Porsche GT1 passing Porsche GT2 in the background, and it hasn't been a day to remember for Porsche with their very fleet new car. It has shown itself to be unreliable, but Porsche came here to Oschersleben saying that their car was so new, so little tested, that they were really regarding this race as a test. And while Mercedes-Benz look as though they've dominated the proceedings, we're certainly going to hear more of this new GT1 Porsche as the season goes on. In his very first race in a two-seater car, single-seater star he is. Today's a GT star. The checkered flag waves and Mercedes win the opening round. There is Ricardo Zonta watching his own victory from the pits. Mercedes win the opening round of the 1998 FIA GT Championship, and they win it in tremendous style with a 1, a 2 and a 3. And there is the Viper of Olivier Beretta and Pedro Lamy, which comes home the GT2 winners, and they take the checkered flag. A great 1-2 for Viper, a great 1-2-3 for Mercedes, and there is their champagne that they richly deserve.
So Mercedes totally dominating. There's still work for Porsche to do, but promising signs for Paynos in 5th.
Conditions are perfect here at Silverstone. The full Grand Prix circuit, of course. Lots of fast open corners for the big GT cars to use their full 600 horsepower.
So it could be a big day for Alan McNish and Porsche. Settle back and enjoy the race with Simon.
Lots of GT1 and GT2 variety on this big grid as they come round for the rolling start, headed by Alan McNish. Alan McNish's Porsche and David Brabham's Paynos at the front. Then Porsche and Mercedes. The light is green. They're away, and Alan McNish makes a perfect start down the straight into the first right-hander at Copse Corner. Alan McNish leads. Behind him, the Paynos has got second place. One of the silver Mercedes going into third, just ahead of Uwe Altson's Porsche, and then the rest of the field all shuffling and jockeying for position as the leaders go away from Copse, down the slight incline, through the fast Maggots curve and down to Beckett's. It's McNish, then it's Brabham. Ludwig going into third place just ahead of Uwe Altson's Porsche, reversing their grid position. So it's Porsche, Paynos, Mercedes, Porsche, Mercedes, and they're fanning out now on the long Hanger straight up to 190 miles an hour before they get on the brakes and flick into the right-hander that's Stowe Corner. There is the Mercedes of Ludwig in third place, but look at both McNish and Brabham making a little bit of a break. Ludwig then still in third place. Uwe Altson is fourth. Then it's the side by side there. That was Bernd Schneider trying to move up, and it's done him no good at all. Bernd Schneider's lost a couple of places trying to elbow past the blue Mercedes there of Christophe Bouchou, and that has delayed the silver Mercedes with the yellow mirrors for a moment. They're up already to Abbey Curve, the tight chicane now at Abbey Curve, and already the leaders coming into our sight under the bridge, the tight right-hander at Bridge Corner. Alan McNish magnificently leading for Scotland and for Germany, of course, in the Porsche, but in second place, that front-engine Paynos, that grumbling car with its thunderous American V8 engine note. That's David Brabham in second place. There's Klaus Ludwig with the red mirrors. Exhaust pipes are literally wrapped over the driver's legs, and Altson running wide in his efforts to try and get closer and closer to David Brabham. There's traffic in front of them. They're starting to lap the slower GT2 cars, and David Brabham working very, very hard in a car that is quick in a straight line, but is not as good under braking and not as quick in the corners as is the much more up-to-date GT1 Porsche behind. They're gobbling up the slower cars now. They come down towards Copse. A brief hesitation there for David Brabham. Into the pits, it's the leader. The leader's in the pits. Alan McNish has a problem. He's in much too early. This is not a routine stop. Alan McNish in the pits. The Paynos is in the lead, and it's not, because briefly Uwe Altson gets ahead. David Brabham keeps the door slammed shut. David Brabham continues to lead for the first time in its FIA GT Championship career. Paynos is leading, and there's poor Alan McNish A bitter pill for him. They're taking the engine cover off the formerly leading Porsche, McNish in bad trouble. So far this season, these dramatic new GT1 Porsches have been very fast, but they haven't yet shown themselves to be reliable. But the battle for the lead goes on. They're just swallowing up the smoking bitter of Rain and Bonnet's Muller. Still the Paynos has the lead. Still Uwe Altzen pushing the yellow flag. Off goes another blue Mercedes. That's Christophe Bouchou now. Christophe Bouchou, who was holding that fourth place, has gone off into the dust, deep into the gravel at Copse Corner, well dug in. Of course, under GT regulations, they can drag him out. If the car isn't damaged, he can carry on, but of course, he's absolutely lost his fourth place. That battle going on between Bartelsgrau and Schneider. We see it again. Left his braking too late for Copse, backwards off into the gravel. And Alan McNish, meanwhile, sitting frustrated, stony-faced. They're shutting him in. They're going to refuel the car now. They're not allowed to refuel while they do anything else. The Marcos is in trouble too. But Alan McNish, they're going to try and get him out again. He's lost a lot of time in the pits. There they are moving the Christophe Bouchou Mercedes. Bouchou still sitting in the car. The front wheel's not even going round. The left-hand cylinder bank of that flat six turbocharged engine in the back of the Porsche is smoking badly. Alan McNish going very slowly indeed, looking at his mirrors to make sure he doesn't keep anybody. Oh, and he almost slides the car. I think that engine is locking up. Perhaps it's putting oil on the rear tyres, and Alan McNish's race is surely now run. And what a bitter shame for the young Scotsman. Started from pole position in the very quick GT1 Porsche, turns the headlights off, the race is run. But headlights still ablaze for that Paynos out in front, lapping the GT1 McLaren, the black McLaren there of Jeff Lees and Thomas Boucher. Thomas Boucher at the wheel at the moment. But the Paynos eases away a little bit from Uwe Altzen, then has to slow a little to go round that slower GT2 Porsche, and once more Uwe Altzen is right up with him now. The silver front engine Paynos with the big thunderous V8 engine. David Brabham, the Australian, at the wheel. Uwe Altzen tucked into the slipstream now in the Porsche, as he has been for several laps. And behind, a little bit of Mercedes team tactics there. The yellow mirrored car, that's Bernd Schneider, going past the red mirrored car, which is Klaus Ludwig. They lap Thomas Boucher's McLaren as they do so. So now Schneider is third, the reigning champion up into third place. Paynos 1, Porsche 2, Mercedes 3, Mercedes 4. But Uwe Altzen is dogging his every move, and Altzen has to hit the brakes, almost goes into the back of David Brabham there, falters briefly. Brabham has a little bit of a breathing space. Schneider is getting closer and closer. They're on the hanger straight now, headlights ablaze from the Paynos. Brabham leads Altzen, leads Schneider, the three of them tied together, up to 195 miles an hour on the brakes now. Altzen's going for it on the inside, and they've touched, and the Paynos is off. Brabham backwards off the track. Altzen goes through. Schneider has passed both of them. Schneider takes the lead. Brabham is in the dirt. Brabham is off, and he will be absolutely furious. There's Schneider in the lead. Uwe Altzen still in second place, but now behind the Mercedes. We see it again, and as Brabham goes to take his line, Altzen is coming down the inside already. A collision is absolutely inevitable. It spins the Paynos round. On the brakes goes Altzen, just misses the front of the spinning Paynos, and as the Paynos goes off, we see it once more, so the Porsche is able to sneak in on the inside, but his brakes are on so hard that Schneider is able to take the lead once more. Mercedes 1. Now there he is, the man with the yellow mirrors. He's come all the way up from 8th place to lead the British Empire Trophy, but that Porsche is still fighting. Uwe Altzen wants the lead, and having had that drama with David Brabham, he still finds himself in second place, but this time he's got a V12 Mercedes to try to overtake. Schneider in the lead, and they're pulling the Paynos out. David Brabham still sitting, fuming no doubt, in the cockpit, but the Paynos is dragged out, and remember, he is allowed to restart. There's an awful lot of gravel on the car, but I would think that David Brabham will bring that car round to the pits. Yes, Eric Bernard, his co-driver, is being got ready in the Dams pit. They're hastily getting Eric Bernard togged up earlier than he thought he was going to have to be ready, because they know that David Brabham is now coming round to the pits. Eric Bernard runs to the front of the pits. He's going to have to take over. Bernd Schneider pulling away now from Uwe Altsson, who's been dogged by a couple of backmarkers. Well, actually, those backmarkers are the GT2 leaders, as back onto the track now goes David Brabham. David Brabham, under his own power, starts off, gravel pouring off the underneath of the car. David Brabham on his way back. Well, Mercedes, maybe the last race for this big V12 Mercedes, because they're replacing it with a lighter but probably just as powerful V8 car for future rounds of the FIA GT Championship. So lest the Porsches should become reliable, Mercedes are looking for more speed still. Well, there's a lot of speed being shown by Jörg Müller, because that second place Porsche of Jörg Müller is really going quickly now. Jörg Müller is starting to wind in Mark Webber. Jörg Müller very much the hot shoe, the young Formula 3000 expert, and Jörg Müller going very fast indeed and closing the gap now on this leading Mercedes. Bernd Schneider watching in the pits, Mark Webber working in the cockpit as the Webber car comes through the tight final corner, the double right-hander at Luffield, and out of the Woodcote area and onto the start-finish straight goes Mark Webber. But Jörg Müller currently running about 12 seconds behind and closing, and that's always a problem you can have in these events. But now Schneider has gone ahead on this final lap. Schneider goes ahead of the third-placed Porsche to lap it. Schneider leads. It's still Jörg Müller in second place, and Schneider now knows that the checkered flag is waiting. He obviously believes he has got enough fuel to get himself to the finish, and now he's charging for it. Now Bernd Schneider goes for the checkered flag in the silver V12 Mercedes. The Mercedes crew watching. That's Norbert Haug, looking pensive, hoping that nothing's going to go wrong on this final lap. But Bernd Schneider feels everything's going to be all right. The checkered flag is waiting. He comes onto the final start-finish straight, and Bernd Schneider crosses the start-finish line to win the British Empire Trophy for Mercedes. And of course his Australian co-driver Mark Webber played his part as well. Mark Webber's second GT race and his first victory. And a great Mercedes win for Schneider and Webber. But look at the times. Uwe Altsson and Jörg Müller just 8 seconds behind them after 312 miles of racing. Porsche finished third, Mercedes fourth, and Porsche fifth. And here's Bernd Schneider, the man who brought the car to the finish, delighted with his first win of the year. Here at Hockenheim, on Mercedes' doorstep, it's reigning champion Bernd Schneider, who will start from pole position in a new lightweight V8 version of the Mercedes CLK. Here at Hockenheim, Mercedes have taken the first 4 places on the grid, and Klaus Ludwig's new V8 car joins Schneider on the front row. So Porsche, despite their Le Mans victory, haven't beaten Mercedes yet in this year's FIA Championship rounds. But the potential of the sleek GT1 Porsche has been proved at Le Mans. So today, Yannick Dalmas and Alan McNish want to tackle Mercedes on their home ground. At the top of the qualifying list, they come round the final corner at Hockenheim to complete their rolling start lap. 2 silver Mercedes at the front, then the 2 blue Person Mercedes, then the 2 white Porsches. The lights go green and the 2 silver Mercedes move as one, but it's Schneider on the inside with the yellow mirrors. Schneider takes the lead, longs up a wheel going into that first right-hander, but it's Schneider from Ludwig. Then it's Gunon and Mailander in the 2 blue Mercedes, but one of the Porsches is right up there, and then the Paynos with his headlights on already as they fan out to go down to that first chicane, the Jim Clark chicane, which is approaching them now as they come up to about 190 miles an hour, and Mercedes, and then a Porsche into that first chicane, and it's Schneider, then it's Ludwig, Gunon, Mailander, Jörg Müller under pressure from the Paynos. It's Eric Bernard in the Paynos, and we're riding now with Michael Bartels in the Zaxby Porsche. Ahead of him, the black McLaren, that's Jeff Lees, who's well up to about 215 miles an hour round the Ostkurve. They're coming up to the second chicane, the Ostkurve chicane on the brakes now. The brake lights go on, tight into that right and then left and then right again, those unforgiving curves before they're hard on the power to go down the long drag, which will take them to the third chicane, the Ayrton Senna chicane. Yellow mirrors lead red mirrors, that's Schneider leading Ludwig, then the 2 blue Mercedes, but there's a battle behind them. The Paynos has moved up a place. Yes, the Paynos goes ahead of the faster of the Porsches. Müller is passed by Eric Bernard, trying very hard in the Paynos. The GT2 car cars all jockeying for position behind them, but 4 Mercedes in the lead, and the front-engined American V8 powered Paynos is in 5th place, ahead of 2 Porsches, a McLaren and the 2 green Zach Speed Porsches. This is only the first lap. There's a long way to go, but the race is well and truly on as they come back into the chicane section, round that tight left-hander, which is the Sachs curver, then the double right-hander, the Sud curver. Look at Muller closing right up under braking on the Paynos. The Paynos still, though, holding on to that 5th place ahead of the 2 Porsches, behind the 4 Mercedes as they cross the start-finish line. Bernd Schneider is starting to build his 2nd place teammate, holding the opposition back as Bernd Schneider, the reigning FIA GT champion, dances on the brakes into the chicane with that V8 lightweight CLK Mercedes, which is looking a very daunting and powerful piece of machinery indeed. He's coming out of the Ayrton Senna chicane as his teammate Ludwig comes into it. Ludwig still has the 2-person Mercedes, Gunnar Mailander behind him. The Paynos, incidentally, has now yielded that 5th place to the Porsche of Jörg Muller, although he's having a little look down the inside as they come down into the stadium once more. There's Yannick Dalmas following the Paynos, and we're seeing a replay. This shows how Bernd Schneider can use the chicanes, that car bouncing over the curbs there, and you can see how little suspension movement these cars have. If you go over a bump, the wheels come up into the air. The back wheel's right off the ground there, but it's a strong car. Bernd Schneider, a hard, and the problem is perhaps a handling problem for Jörg Muller, but that's a blow for the works Porsche GT1s. The fresh tyres are going on. The Paynos, therefore, has moved back into 5th place. And the other GT1 works Porsche's off. Yannick Dalmas in the gravel. Yannick Dalmas has gone off. The car is stuck. He's spinning his wheels, trying to undig it, but it's well and truly beached. And we're seeing what happened. He was coming up to lap one of the Vipers, the GT2 Vipers, but just seemed to leave his braking too late. Now, the GT regulations allow him to have help to get himself out of the gravel if necessary. He can rejoin the race, but of course he's losing a huge amount of time. So a double blow in 1 lap for Porsche. There's Mark Webber, Bernd Schneider's co-driver, with Schneider getting the pit signal. And on his way now is Jörg Muller. He's got fresh tyres on that car, and he's going extremely quickly now. So whatever the problem was, the change of tyres has cured it. Back into the race goes Yannick Dalmas, and look at him scattering gravel everywhere. The under tray of that Porsche is completely full of the gravel from the gravel trap that slows the cars down so effectively when they go off the track. But there's an awful lot of that gravel now on the track, as Yannick Dalmas, headlights still on, makes his way back to what I'm sure will be a pit stop, because they'll need to clear the gravel out of the underneath of that car. Jeff Lees coming up behind him in the McLaren. Lees has to tuck in as they brake for the Ayrton Senna chicane. Gravel absolutely everywhere, and Jeff Lees has to drive through it. A barrage there. And we're seeing a replay. This is the Paynos. This is Eric Bernard getting into trouble. He'd briefly overtaken Maylander's blue Mercedes, but he left his braking too late, and the Mercedes is going the right way round the chicane, going all the way around, still leading the FIA GT Championship race here. The Porsche on his tail is the Porsche of Jörg Muller, but it's a lap down after that pit stop for fresh tyres to cure a handling problem, and it's still Mercedes 1, 2, 3, 4. Fire for a Porsche. That's Sandy Grau's car on fire. Sandy Grau's Zach Speed Porsche. He's pulling it off the track. He's got his door open, and that car is well and truly ablaze, but he's got it on the grass, and he's out of the car now. The fire marshal's on the spot. Sandy Grau out of the car, and Sandy Grau's teammates coming in. That is the Michael Bartel's car. It's got a flat front tyre. The front left-hand tyre is punctured. What a terrible race this has been for Porsche. This has been a total disaster this lap for the Zach Speed team with the 2 green Porsches. We've also had trouble for the 2 white Porsches, and out gets Eric Bernard from the Paynos. A brilliant drive by Eric Bernard. Clambering into that tiny tight cockpit goes the very talented David Brabham, with Eric Bernard helping to strap him in. The Paynos going to ring around. There's a slower GT2 Porsche ahead of them to lap, They're coming now down the back straight into the Ayrton Senna chicane, both leaving their braking as late as they possibly can. The big Mercedes slides, goes over the grass as they come out. The Porsche right tucked in behind it. The Porsche's gone off! Uwe Altsen's lost it. Uwe Altsen in the barriers. The car's caught fire. It's still going backwards down the verge. Now it's stopped. The door's open. Uwe Altsen is out of the car, but the car is on fire. What a terrible, terrible day for Porsche. The yellow flags wave. Uwe Altsen out of the car, walks away, looks at the rear end on fire. The disconsolate Porsche team watching it on their monitors as the fire marshals arrive now, get the fire out, and Uwe Altsen's race is totally and irrevocably run. Now this is the other blue Mercedes coming into the pits. This is the Mailander Bouchou car. We understand it's been black flagged, apparently got a push start after its last stop, and it looks as though they're going to wheel it back into the pits. Yes, that is has lost it third place. That's Bernd Schneider watching Mark Webber on his way, but here now we see the Paynos, and the Paynos has taken advantage of that late pit stop by the blue Mercedes to take third place. The Paynos is up to third place, headlights ablaze. The Mercedes is just behind it, fourth, and is trying to get that third place back as they lap the Mustang coming into the Ostkurve chicane, but the Paynos has got the legs of the Mercedes, and David Brabham driving with a will. Another late splash and dash. This is the McNish-Dalmas Porsche, which is still going after all its earlier problems, but that will probably let Jeff Lee's McLaren pass it. So late changes all the time in this enthralling GT race here at Hockenheim. Can the Paynos hang on to third place? Can the blue Mercedes make it a Mercedes 1, 2, 3? Or the right-hander which brings him into the stadium. Already he's greeted by the waving Mercedes flags from the fans as he goes into the tight left-hander of the Sachs Curva. Then the final double apex right-hander, the Sud Curva. The checkered flag is waiting for Mark Webber. Bernd Schneider is there in the pits to cheer him home as home comes the number 1 Mercedes over the start-finish line, takes the checkered flag. It's another crushing victory for the Silver Arrows. What must the others do to beat them?
So once again, Mercedes finished first and second. The Paynos boys make it onto the podium. An excellent fifth for Jeff Lees and Thomas Becher, ahead of Alan McNish. Rather too simple for Mercedes this season. Current champion Bernd Schneider sharing the top of the podium with Mark Webber. What a first season he's having. The pair are top of the drivers' table, 18 points clear of the nearest Porsche drivers. So we're getting to the stage of a season where Porsche really must get some points on the board. These are the cars to follow this season. They do battle again at Dijon in France.
On the twisty little Dijon circuit, the Mercedes have again qualified at the front, with championship leaders Schneider and Webber just ahead of teammates Ludwig and Zonta. But Uwe Altsen and Jörg Müller are third quickest in their Porsche, with Alan McNish and Yannick Dalmas fifth. And the thunderous Paynos of David Brabham and Eric Bernard is on row 4, hoping to repeat its podium at Hockenheim. So the 2 silver Mercedes lead the rolling grid round to the start line, with Altsen's Porsche and the blue Persson Mercedes of Christophe Bouchou on row 2, and they're away. Schneider immediately going into the lead. Schneider ahead of Ludwig as they go down to the first corner. It's Christophe Bouchou in third place in the blue Mercedes. Then it's Uwe Altsen, Yannick Dalmas, Gounod in the second blue Mercedes, and the Paynos is up there in 7th place. That's Eric Bernard, but through the sweeps behind the pits and this wonderful little Dijon circuit, it's the 2 Silver Arrows in front. Schneider from Ludwig, Bouchou, Mercedes 1, 2, 3, then the 2 Porsches of Altsen and Dalmas, and the rest of the field strung out as they come into the tight uphill hairpin. Jean-Marc Gounod in 6th place in the second of the 2 blue Mercedes. Then it's Eric Bernard in the silver Paynos, and behind him, battling for 8th place, the 2 green Porsches. They're side by side as they come down the hill. Sandy Grau shutting out Michael Bartels and holding on to his 8th place. It's only the first lap, but they're already battling very close indeed. There are the 2 white and blue Vipers in 1st and 2nd place in the important GT2 category. Remember this, like all the rounds of the FIA GT Championship, 2 races in 1 for the GT1 cars and the GT2s, which are much more in production trim. Mercedes on the little 911 Porsches there, and closing on the cars in front, charging along in that grumbling, thunderous Paynos. And Uwe Altzen trying to go round the outside of the back marker. Bouchou is being overwhelmed by the two Porsches. Look at Dalmas going through on the outside. Dalmas has made up 2 places, and they're so close as they cross the start-finish line. But in all of that, Yannick Dalmas has gone ahead of Bouchou's Porsche, and Altzen has been pushed to the back of that little group, and he's now being pushed by the Paynos. A tremendous 4-car battle going on there for 3rd place. The man who's got 3rd place now is Yannick Dalmas. Bouchou is 4th. In 5th place, it's Uwe Altzen, and the Paynos is 6th, but pushing Altzen very hard indeed. It's very twisty, it's narrow, we're seeing it again. Altzen pushed right off to the side of the road, and as he does so, Yannick Dalmas takes an opportunist move down the right-hand side of the road and finds himself in 3rd place. Still the 2 silver Mercedes, 1st and 2nd, Schneider. The 12 Mercedes coming into the pit lane now. That's Christophe Bouchou coming in for his first routine stop, and his co-driver Bernd Mailander ready, but I don't think he's going to get in. And the other blue one here as well, because in now has come Jean-Marc Gounon as well, both the blue Mercedes in at once. A lot of work going on in the person pit. Marcel Thiemann also, not Schneider. Bernd Schneider staying in the cockpit, they're refueling. Now they're not allowed to start on the tyres until they finish the refueling. That's what the rules say. So as soon as the refueling is finished, then the mechanics by the wheels can start undoing the wheels and getting the fresh rubber on. The fuel's still going in, and in now we've got Uwe Altzen's car. Uwe Altzen being refueled as well, and Jörg Muller getting into that car. And so all of that means that Klaus Ludwig in the silver Mercedes with the red mirrors is now in the lead. He has yet to make his first pit stop, as Bernd Schneider's car is almost completed down here in the pits. Klaus Ludwig on his way, and Yannick Dalmas is not far behind him in 2nd place in the Porsche. Headlights blazing, the Mercedes and the Porsche go through. Off the jacks now comes Bernd Schneider's car. It's got its fresh rubber. Bernd Schneider has stayed aboard. Mark Webber doesn't get to work in the cockpit yet, and out of the pit lane comes Bernd Schneider, the current leader in the FIA GT Championship. Behind him out comes Jörg Muller in the Uwe Altzen Porsche as well, but we've got Ludwig's Mercedes now leading. The door is shut. Interesting that they have changed drivers, although Schneider is doing a double stint, and still the fuel being finished. A lot of fuel. Now the fuel is finished, so they're going to change the tyres. They're not going to change the tyres. They've started the car up. It's gone straight out without a tyre change. Schneider didn't change drivers, did change rubber. Ludwig did change drivers, didn't change rubber. So differing strategies between the 2 silver arrows. We watch Jörg Muller in the number 8 Porsche. Jörg Muller settling into his first stint. Very rapid Formula 3000 driver in previous seasons. A very quick German is Jörg Muller. And we've got the number 7 Porsche in the pit lane. After a brief moment of glory, Yannick Dalmas has been leading this race because he's the last one of the front runners to stop. Yannick Dalmas has the door open. Dalmas getting out, and Alan McNish ready to clamber aboard. Alan McNish, the Le Mans winner, waiting to get into that number 7 Porsche. But meanwhile, all of those stops have, of course, put this car, the silver Mercedes with the yellow mirrors, back into the lead. Bernd Schneider on his 2nd stint. The car nodding as it goes over the bumps under braking here at Dijon and goes sweeping through the long downhill S-bend section. And the Porsche, the Paynos, comes over the brow as a locked wheel there from Jean-Marc Gounon in the blue Mercedes shows that he's starting to feel the pressure from the Porsche behind him, and the Paynos getting closer. The Paynos running now in 5th place, and the 2 cars in front of him battling for 7th, and now the Porsche goes through on the inside. Surely, yes, he's done it. Bartels elbows through on the inside at last, instantly moves away as the Paynos now goes through, and Jean-Marc Gounon goes very, very wide, and the Paynos splits the battling too. Up into 7th place now goes Armin Hahner in the Zack-Speed Porsche, but Gounon is fighting back. Gounon tries to go through with the Paynos. That's an old trick. If the car in front of you is about to be lapped by a faster car, tuck in invisibly behind it and try and follow it through. But now the Mercedes back into the race. The front tyres are done. It's off the jacks. They started up, and away goes Mark Webber. Mark Webber goes back into the race. Now in 2nd place, no, now in 3rd place. race, because there's McNish. McNish having a big weave as he comes over the start-finish line, and out in third place now comes the Mercedes with the yellow mirrors. That's Bernd Schneider. Alan McNish, therefore, splitting the two silver arrows at the moment. Of course, he has a pit stop to come soon. Behind him, on the road, but actually a full lap down in fifth place, is David Brabham in the Paynos. So Alan McNish in second place now. The Paynos, a little puff of flame from its exhaust pipe as David Brabham comes off the power, hits the brakes to go in that tight uphill right-hander. Now we're seeing a replay of Armin Harner's moment. He's just come into the pit lane, locked up in the pit lane, and had an accident, crashing sideways into the barriers. I don't think he's done much damage to the car. I think he's going to be able to carry on, but that a bad mistake by Harner. And here's McNish. McNish coming in. This is the second routine stop for the number 7 Porsche. McNish will hand back over to Dalmas, briefly in second place, but the car running securely in the top 3. And as McNish comes in, I can see the number 8 Porsche coming slowly towards the pit lane. Alan McNish leaps out of number 7. Yannick Dalmas is helped in. They're refueling the number 7 car, which seems to be perfectly healthy, but clunking in comes number 8, Jörg Müller at the wheel, and I would guess that that car's race is run. On goes the new rubber onto the Yannick Dalmas Alan McNish car, and when it gets back in the race, it should still have its third place. Yes, it's fired up and away. Back into third place goes Yannick Dalmas in the car he's sharing with Alan McNish, and pushed away is the number 8 car. And now we've got a problem for the leader. The leading car is going very slow. It's got a puncture. The rear left tyre is punctured. Now what happened here? The car has spun. Mark Webber going backwards off. Oh, and he hit the barrier too. Number 1 Mercedes, the leading car, has hit the barriers. It's got a punctured left rear tyre, and Mark Webber is nursing that car on a wheel rim all the way back, most of a lap, to get it back to the pits. It's now back in the pits. They're removing that damaged rear wheel. It comes off in 2 pieces, and Mark Webber sitting impatiently in the cockpit. Mercedes mechanics swarming all over the car. They've got a new left rear on it, but the rear bodywork is damaged, and I would think they're going to have to replace that as well. There's Bernd Schneider going up to open the door and have a quick word. No, he's just making sure the door's shut. He gave a little wave at Mark Webber through the window. There's the new rear bodywork ready to go on, but a lot of work going on to that car. It's lost the lead, and now the leader, therefore, is the sole surviving silver V8 Mercedes of Klaus Ludwig and Ricardo Zonta. There he is with the red mirrors. Zonta in the lead, and that's promoted Yannick Dalmas and Alan McNish to second place. The Paynos is now in third place. The old-style V12 Mercedes, the pair of blue cars, are in fourth and fifth place. The Mercedes Works team now on his final lap. Bernd Schneider out, and Ricardo Zonta and Klaus Ludwig, therefore, on their way to win this race in the sole surviving V8 Mercedes. His headlights still on, hoping that the 911s ahead of him are going to look in their mirrors as he goes steeply up the hill, squirts up the inside of one of them. Meanwhile, Alan McNish and Yannick Dalmas in a magnificent second place in their Porsche. Dalmas in the car at the moment. That's going to be the best performance for the Works Porsche team so far this year in the FIA GT Championship, and indeed will be Alan McNish's first podium in this class. But of course, don't forget, he did get on the podium, on the top step of the podium, in the Le Mans 24-hour race this year. And so the final lap being reeled off by Ricardo Zonta. The checkered flag is waiting for him as he comes over the final brow, and there the checkered flag waves. Another Mercedes victory. Klaus Ludwig cheers him home. Alan McNish and Yannick Dalmas finish second for Porsche, and a great third place for Paynos, for Eric Bernard and for David Brabham.
So here's confirmation of the result. Mercedes really starting to run away with things. Alan McNish and Yannick Dalmas claim their best finish of the season. The Paynos, again, is third. The bad news for Bernd Schneider and Mark Webber is that their failure to finish hands the lead in the Drivers' Championship to today's winners Klaus Ludwig and Ricardo Zonta. Next, the series moves on. It's a Mercedes 1-2. Let's find out how they got there from Simon Taylor.
Well, qualifying here yesterday would have done credit to a Formula One session. In the closing minutes, this was the very talented Alan McNish on a superbly smooth, committed lap in the new GT1 Porsche. Schneider's 1:29.86 to beat as Alan comes through the final right-hander. The seconds are ticking away. Is it going to be a Porsche on pole? He crosses the line, the watch stops at 1:29.451, and that puts McNish on pole position. But not for long. Here's Ricardo Zonta's final effort in the number 2 Mercedes, which was another 2/5 quicker. And finally, as the checkered flag came out, the reigning champion, Bernd Schneider, restored law and order and dipped under 1:29 to get the pole position back, to the absolute delight of Mercedes racing boss. 2 Mercedes at the front, 2 Porsches behind them. They come storming down to the first corner, and it's Schneider who's got the lead. Schneider from Zonta, from McNish, and there's a Mercedes spinning in the middle. It's Bernd Mailander who's spun right in the middle of the first corner. One of the 911s has hit him. Somebody else was involved as well. The rest of the field streaming out down the hill behind us, but there is wreckage on this first corner down here below my position. That's one of the GT1 Porsches which has been damaged. A lot of its front bodywork is falling off. The Mercedes is still stationary in front of me. There is the 911, which is the car of Alfred Hager, and his race, I would think, is run, and yes, there's a red flag. They're going to red flag the race, so that means that we have to go through the whole starting procedure again, all the fields coming round to take up their positions on the grid. The grid order just the same as it was before. Schneider and Zonta in the 2 silver Mercedes at the front, then McNish and Muller in the 2 white Porsches, then the silver Paynos. They're on the final start-finish straight now. The lights are green, the race is on. Once more the 2 Mercedes move as one. It's Schneider who's just easing away from Zonta. McNish is right there in 3rd place. Muller is 4th. The Paynos is 5th. Then the 2 green Porsches split by the remaining blue Person Mercedes, the big V12 one which is still there. They go round behind the pits, down the hill through that tight left-hander, 2nd gear left-hander, accelerating away from us across the valley, and Mercedes, Porsche and Paynos, and then 2 more Porsches and another Mercedes, and Bernd Schneider is already making a break. Bernd Schneider has the lead. Ricardo Zonta in 2nd place. Those are the 2 silver Mercedes. Alan McNish, the young Scot, is in 3rd place in the first of the 2 Works GT1 Porsches. Jörg Muller in 4th place in the other one. And in GT2, the race within a race that we have in all of these FIA GT rounds, it's a Marcos in the lead. The 1 Marcos in the race, driven by the Dutchman Cor Oyser, is leading the 2 Vipers, Pedro Lamy and Carl Wendlinger, 2nd and 3rd in GT2. But Cor Oyser's Marcos leads GT2. Mercedes lead GT1 as they come round to complete their first lap. It's the silver car with the yellow mirrors that's the number 1 car. That is Bernd Schneider. The car with the red mirrors, the number 2 car, is Ricardo Zonta. And already you can see what Mercedes' strategy is. Schneider makes the break. Schneider is pulling away, his car nodding under braking as he goes in the steep downhill long turn 1. And the number 2 car, Ricardo Zonta, his job is to keep all the opposition behind. Will no doubt be taking over from the very experienced Englishman Jeff Lees. McLaren's played such a major role in FIA GT racing last year, but this is the only McLaren doing this championship consistently in 1998. Bernd Schneider, the leader, on the tail of Marcel Thiemann in one of last year's V12 Mercedes, and Thiemann always going to be slower than Schneider, but I think that Thiemann's car is in a bit of trouble. Certainly Schneider goes on his way, followed by Thiemann. Schneider in the newer lightweight V8 car, and Thiemann in the older, heavier V12 car. Once more we ride with Muller. Once more Muller has one of the ever-present 911 GT2 cars to lap. He does so, and I think that Marcel Thiemann has stopped out on the circuit. There he is. The blue V12 Mercedes has now stopped, and he's moving it to a safer place, but obviously his race is run. Alan McNish on the tail of Armin Harner, whom he's lapping. In fact, Armin Harner holding him up badly. Harner has just taken over that green Zaxby GT1 Porsche. Alan McNish hasn't come in yet, but McNish, oh, badly held up there again. Armin Harner just moved across in front of him in a disgraceful fashion. Both of those cars effectively works cars. The green cars are run by Zaxby, but McNish is clearly so much quicker than Harner. Now we've got Schneider in the pits. Schneider worms his way out of the cockpit of the #1 Mercedes, worming into the cockpit now. His equally tall co-driver, the Australian Mark Webber. Webber gets himself into that tight little cockpit, and out of the pits now comes the Porsche of Jörg Müller, driven now by Bob Wallach, as in comes Alan McNish, and Alan McNish stops, and Yannick Dalmas is ready. Dalmas helps Alan McNish out of his cockpit. McNish takes his seat with him because Yannick Dalmas is taller and sits on the seat that's underneath McNish's seat. Meanwhile, Mark Webber gets the leading car back into the race. His pit stop, Thomas Bashir out of the race. Meanwhile, Klaus Ludwig at the wheel of the second place Mercedes. Mark Webber at the wheel of the leading Mercedes. Yannick Dalmas leading the Porsche pursuit in the Alan McNish car. Can the Porsches take the fight at the Hungaroring? And meanwhile, we've got the Paynos in now. The Paynos being refueled. David Brabham already out of the car. There's Eric Bernard being strapped in, and they're refueling the car now. And there's a fuel spill. There's some fuel spilt on the back of that car, and it's on fire. It's on fire, and David Brabham's pushed back, and Eric Bernard's out of the car. They've got the fire extinguishers on it very quickly. All the mechanics have stood back. And Eric Bernard, I think, he's got some burns on his face. He's certainly uncomfortable, but they've got that fire out, and it hasn't got to the fuel tank, the refueling tank behind. I think they've got it under control, but that was a very, very nasty moment indeed. Yes, the fire is now well and truly out. Eric Bernard was inside the car when it caught fire. What happened? We're going to see it again. There was fuel spilt all over the roof and the side of the car, and when it went on fire, Eric Bernard leapt from the car, rolled out of the car, but there were flames inside, and that's why his face was burned. I don't think it's too serious. Fortunately, he will have been wearing his flameproof mask under his helmet. There he is.
Just a little, yeah, you know, on the left side.
McNish still doing a grand job in third place, but the GT1 Porsche, even on this tight, narrow, twisty circuit, just doesn't seem to have quite the steam to be able to cope with these very quick V8 Mercedes. Headlights on, that's the green Zaxby Porsche of Bartels and Harner, which has taken over the fifth place, vacated by the unfortunate Paynos. Red mirrors on the #2 Mercedes, that's the Ludwig Zonta car with Ricardo Zonta, the young Brazilian, at the wheel at the moment. Zonta, a man who's got his eyes set on Formula One soon, and there the 49-year-old veteran Klaus Ludwig, Zonta's co-driver, watching from the pits as Zonta is doing an excellent job of maintaining this 1-2 for Mercedes at the moment. In fact, he's actually closing the gap a little bit on Bernd Schneider. Schneider picking his way through the back markers, and the gap between the two Mercedes less than 18 seconds now. There it is, in fact, 17.9 seconds. Half a lap now stand between Bernd Schneider and the checkered flag, and this is going to be his third win, Mark Webber's third win of the season, and it's going to be Mercedes' fifth win out of 5 rounds in the FIA GT Championship. Their domination of the series this year has been absolutely total with this new lightweight V8 car. They took it to Le Mans, incidentally. It wasn't reliable, and that was the one piece of glory that Porsche have been able to have this year in the famous French 24-hour race. But in the FIA GT Championship rounds, Porsche have been completely conquered by Mercedes, and it's ironic that Bernd Schneider is now lapping the Bartels-Harner Zaxby Porsche for what must be the 5th time in this race. He's just got the final left-hander behind the pits, and then the last long right-hander, which will bring him onto the start-finish straight. As it does so now, the Mercedes-Benz crew are waiting to cheer him home in the pits, as is Mark Webber, and Bernd Schneider wins for Mercedes-Benz in Hungary.
Another all-conquering display by Mercedes. 5 races and 5 wins this season. In the past couple, Porsche have edged slightly closer, but they've never yet mounted a convincing challenge. There has been a change in GT2, so the Vipers run is broken. Beaten for the first time by Sascha Massen and Bruno Eichmann in the Porsche. The British-built Marcos finished a creditable third. So we're halfway through the season now, and the four Mercedes drivers have a 23-point lead over their rivals, who must be wondering how on earth they can get on terms.
Welcome to a baking hot Suzuka, and here's the reigning champion Bernd Schneider, who once again has pole position in the V8 Mercedes. It's looking good for the Silver Arrows, although the blue Person V12 Mercedes of Gunnar and Thiemann, unhappy on the Suzuka bumps, had this off during qualifying. Our Scots hero Alan McNish in the Works Porsche has qualified third, but it's an all-Mercedes front row again. The Brazilian Ricardo Zonta taking the number 2 Mercedes into its position on the outside of the front row. It's 1,000 kilometres long, this race, and the heat is going to be a big factor. There's the second Works Porsche, Jörg Müller on the outside of row 2, Alan McNish on the inside. Then come the old-type V12 Mercedes in their blue Person colours, and 7th quickest, our old friend the Silver Panos, with a new trio of drivers this weekend, led by Frank Lagorce. Back on row 5 is Jeff Lees in the black GTC McLaren, shared as always with its German owner Thomas Becheur. And now they go away on the warm-up lap. The track temperature, as you see from that caption, 41 degrees centigrade. And it's going to be a very long and a very hot straight. The lights are still red, now they're green, and the Mercedes move as one. Yellow mirrors is Schneider, red mirrors is Zonta, and it's Schneider who's nosing ahead as they go down the start-finish straight, down towards turn 1. Alan McNish is there as well in the first of the 2 Works Porsches, then the 2 blue Person Mercedes, but it's Silver Mercedes 1 and 2. It's Works Porsches 3 and 4, then the 2 blue Mercedes, and then Jeff Lees has made a tremendous start up from the 5th row. The Marcos is leading the 2 Vipers in GT2, but at the front, the Mercedes already putting their authority on this race, with Schneider and Zonta leading McNish and Müller in the 2 Porsches. Wonderful swooping circuit here at Suzuka. It's got every sort of corner. It's got quick ones, it's got tight ones, plenty of overtaking opportunities. There is Jeff Lees in the black McLaren, consolidating this remarkable start he's made, which has put him ahead of the Silver Panos and ahead of the 2 green Zakspeed Porsches. There's the Marcos, 1, 2 and 3 in the GT2s, the Marcos, and then the 2 V10 Chryslers, but the 2 Mercedes at the front. And what's going to be fascinating to see is whether Bernd Schneider will try and extend the lead, while Ricardo Zonta in 2nd place tries to ease his pace and keep those 2 threatening Porsches behind. All this season, the Mercedes have been the winners in the FIA GT Championship. Porsches, always the bridesmaids, never the brides. But today, Alan McNish thinks that he can get among the Mercedes. Schneider, number 1. Zonta number 2, their race numbers indicating the places they are, and Zonta is still tucked in beside Schneider, and the 2 Porsches are staying with them as they go up to 195 miles an hour. We ride now with Jeff Lees in the McLaren on the brakes at the end of the long straight, nosing into the slightly downhill turn 1 with ahead of Thomas Becheur, the 2 V12 Person Mercedes on the power once more as we watch Smith's work before it's begun here. And look at Schneider, the yellow mirrored Mercedes, right in the back markers. There's Zonta, and Alan McNish is hanging on to Zonta. Zonta briefly delayed by the back marker, and McNish is going through on the outside. McNish has got him! McNish is 2nd! A brilliantly opportunist move there by the little Scotsman. He went one side of the back marker just as Zonta was going the other. Zonta wasn't expecting that at all as we see Schneider cross the start-finish line. Zonta is fighting back. Zonta is trying to pull alongside Alan McNish as they go past us down towards the first corner. McNish is on the inside. Zonta has to drop back into 3rd place, and as they go sweeping round that corner, McNish has got that 2nd place. Ricardo Zonta pushed down into 3rd, and that's an example of how you can move up in GT races. You use the back markers, and Alan McNish, a very, very skillful driver indeed in these crowded conditions, and through the twists and turns, going down under braking into that chicane, Alan McNish was handed a tiny little opportunity, and he turned it into 2nd place. Oh, and he's hit him! Zonta has hit him! Zonta has hit him twice, they're both off! McNish off, Zonta off. and they're both beached. McNish's wheels spinning. That was the second place battle, and they're both off the road. They were lapping the little GT2 Porsche you see on the left of the picture there. That's Claudia Hurtgen's car, and as they lapped it, Zonta unaccountably seemed to lose his brakes. We're going to see it again. Now, McNish lining up to go inside Claudia Hurtgen. The Mercedes is behind him, and then you see a puff of tyre smoke. There it is, as Zonta locks up his brakes, clouts the back of McNish, spins McNish round, and then hits him again. A great blow in the side as being released from the gravel is Alan McNish. There he is. McNish only now getting back onto the circuit. Clouds of dust, and I would think clouds of red mist inside the cockpit of that Porsche, because Alan McNish must be absolutely furious. He got that car into second place, and he was then booted out. In fact, now this is what's happening. We've been told that Ricardo Zonta is getting a 3-minute stop-go penalty. So the number 2 Mercedes, which doesn't seem to be damaged, is being held in the pits for 3 minutes as a punishment for that. But Alan McNish lost much more time than 3 minutes. He was stationary for 3 whole laps before they finally got that car out. I say it was undamaged, the number 2 Mercedes. It's got a little bit of damage at the front, as back into the race goes Ricardo Zonta, and quite separately, Jean-Marc Gounon in the blue V12 Mercedes has lost his nose section. He left it somewhere out on the circuit. He's come in for a new one, and there is Gounon suffering considerably from the heat. He's out of the car, his co-driver's taken over. The order now, after all these dramas, Bernd Schneider still the leader, Jörg Müller in this Porsche up into second place, Christophe Bouchou in the other person blue Mercedes in third place, and Frank Labourse in the Paynos is fourth. Jörg Müller out of the car, in gets Uwe Altsson, and there's Ricardo Zonta working his way up through the field after that 3-minute penalty. Here, the Mercedes with red mirrors is the car of Ricardo Zonta, working its way back up the field after that delay, briefly elbowing the Marcos onto the grass there. The Porsche with its headlights on, just having been unlapped by the flying Mercedes. That is the Jörg Müller, Uwe Altsson, Bob Wallach Porsche, and that's up into second place after the delays both to Zonta and to Alan McNish. We ride now with Jeff Lees in the McLaren, going through that tight chicane that ends the lap here at Suzuka, and Jeff Lees and Thomas Bashir have got that car up into an excellent 6th place. The Zonta Ludwig Mercedes is 5th, the Paynos is now running in 4th place, and we've had a spin from the 2nd place Porsche. That is the 2nd place Porsche pointing the wrong direction at the chicane, and Bob Wallach on board that car at the moment, actually driving towards the oncoming traffic in his effort to turn round, and that, I'm sure, will incur the wrath of the organisers. Meanwhile, this is the battle for 4th. The Paynos has been caught by Ricardo Zonta, the Mercedes, the number 2 car, right on the Paynos' tail. This Paynos, with its big pushrod American V8 engine in the front, is surprisingly quick in a straight line, but the V8 Mercedes just sneaks through on the inside absolutely effortlessly. That moves Zonta up to 4th, demotes the Paynos down to 5th place. And Wallach's been given a 3-minute penalty for that chicane incident. There he is, he's served his 3 minutes, and he's away. He stalled it. Bob Wallach stalled it. I think there must be off again. It's Jörg Müller at the wheel of that car now, and he's off at the chicane. So is Jeff Lees. Jeff Lees has got the black McLaren going again, drives down the circuit through the chicane, but Jörg Müller doesn't seem to be able to get going again. He was trying to lap the McLaren, and I think that McLaren is damaged. It's coming slowly down the start-finish straight, but there's damage to the right-hand running gear of that McLaren, and surely his race must be run. Jeff Lees looking in his mirrors, trying to keep out of the way of faster cars as he goes down to turn 1. He's missed the entry to the pits, unfortunately, because the incident happened in the chicane. But you can see part of the bodywork missing on the right-hand side of that car. And Jörg Müller trying to get underway in the number 8 Porsche. He has managed to get the car started. He spent a long time stationary on the grass, but Jörg Müller has got underway again. but the front of that car is damaged. Just look at the front wheel pointing in completely the wrong direction. That must be the end of that Porsche. Into the pits comes what is now the second-placed car, the Buschu Maylander Mercedes, having a routine stop. And there's our leader, Schneider and Webber in the number 1 Mercedes. The Zonta Ludwig Mercedes will probably now go into second place. And Alan McNish is on a charge in the number 7 Porsche. There, Mark Webber waiting to take over. He's trying to keep cool for as long as he can in the sky, and the headlights are coming on all the way around the circuit now. There, the leading Mercedes and Yannick Dalmas in the Alan McNish Porsche running together. The Porsche ahead of the leading Mercedes and about to be lapped for the 3rd time. But that's significant because it was 3 laps that Alan McNish lost while that car was stuck in the gravel after its collision with Ricardo Zonta. If that hadn't happened, the complexion of this Mercedes-dominated race just might have been a bit different. Yannick Dalmas, the very experienced Frenchman, his other teammates, Stéphane Ortelli, also a Le Mans winner, Alan McNish, this year a Le Mans winner. Tremendous experience in long-distance racing for all 3 drivers in that number 7 Porsche, and you can see the brake discs glowing red as Dalmas gets on the brakes, accelerates away out of the 2nd gear hairpin and on through the back section of this circuit. Lights on, says the sign, so everybody must now put their lights on. There's a blue flag there for somebody. In fact, we're looking at the GT2 2nd-placed Viper of Justin Bell, shared with Carl Wendlinger and Hideshi Matsuda. Big headlights let into the bonnet, which we don't normally see on these cars, although we saw them, of course, at Le Mans. There, cooling off, is Bernd Schneider in the red hat, Klaus Ludwig. Their day's work is done, but they're watching. Meanwhile, we have our leader on his final lap. Mark Webber comes through the chicane in the number 1 Mercedes CLK. The checkered flag is waving. He's greeted by the Mercedes team. He crosses the finish line to win another victory for Mark Webber and, of course, for Bernd Schneider, another Mercedes 1-2 here in Japan. That will put Schneider and Webber 3 points clear at the top of the Drivers' Championship table. It makes Mercedes almost completely unbeatable in the Manufacturers' GT Championship. But for Porsche, in the end, a great 3rd place for Alan McNish.
So the winning streak continues for Mercedes. Yet another 1-2. Frustration, though, for Porsche and Alan McNish. He spent 3 laps in the gravel after Zonta punted him off and finished 3 laps down. It could have been much, much closer. Order was restored in the GT2 class, with the Vipers once again taking 1st and 2nd and increasing their lead in the championship. Good to see the British-built Marcos giving them a run for their money, though, in the early stages. But these are the cars that everyone's watching. The Mercedes CLKs are almost in a class of their own. Bernd Schneider and Mark Webber now head the Drivers' Championship from teammates Klaus Ludwig and Ricardo Zonta, who are 20... Back here at Donington, no surprises in qualifying for round 7 of the FIA GT Championship. It's a Mercedes 1-2 on the grid, both on the front row. Mercedes every time this season have achieved pole position. But things are being done to try to even the series up a bit. Simon Taylor is with me to explain what they are. The FIA have made changes this time, Simon.
Well, they have. They've levied a weight penalty of 50 kilograms on the 2 silver Mercedes and on the 2 Works Porsches. 50 kilos, that's about the weight of a tank full of fuel. It's not going to make a lot of difference, but it'll certainly help the Paynos. And as you can see, the Paynos has qualified 3rd quickest ahead of the Porsches. But I think the great leveller here could be the weather. If it rains at any time during the race, then that's what the Porsches would like to see. I know that Alan McNish is certainly doing a rain dance at the moment as the sun comes out onto the grid. Championship in GT2. They come now round for the rolling start, and the Mercedes are about to be split by the Porsche. McNish goes between the 2. A fantastic start by Alan McNish. Alan McNish leads. The other Porsche is up there with him in 2nd place. Both the Mercedes pushed down to 3rd and 4th places, and Schneider's wide. Schneider's on the grass. The rest of the field going by, but a fantastic start by both the Works Porsches. Alan McNish leads at Donington. Uwe Altsson is in 2nd place, and the Mercedes are pushed down to third place for Zonta, and much further back for Schneider. A bit of a moment there for one of the green Zaxby Porsches, which was also on the grass. He's recovered, but as they come through McLean's and sweeping down the dip and up the other side towards Coppice, Porsche, Mercedes, and then Paynos. Alan McNish started third, Uwe Altsson started fifth, and they've both started magnificently, and McNish leads Altsson. Zonta is there in third place. David Brabham is in fourth place in the Paynos, and in the S's now, McNish leads Altsson, twitches as he gets the power on, then goes steeply downhill towards the tight, slow Melbourne hairpin, the tightest corner on the circuit. They're there already, but let's look at the start again. As the lights go green, McNish moves incredibly quickly, pushes his way between the two Mercedes. Uwe Altsson follows. Neither of the Mercedes were very quick on the power. Both the Porsches were incredibly quick on the power. Then as they go into this first corner, watch Schneider being pushed wide by one of the sliding green Porsches. It's actually Bartel's Zaxby car that pushed Schneider onto the grass. Schneider rejoined in 8th place, and off goes Jeff Lees now. Jeff Lees has gone off just beneath my commentary box by that final corner of the first lap here at Goddard's, and Jeff Lees is spinning round on the grass, rejoining as already McNish goes plunging down through the Craner curves on towards Starkey's Bridge. McNish and Altsson first and second, Zonta third in the Mercedes, Brabham fourth in the Paynos. Then it's Bouchou's blue V12 Mercedes, which is fifth. The green Zaxby Porsche in sixth place is the car of Michael Bartels, and Schneider up in 8th place, just behind Thiemann's Mercedes. A puff of smoke there from the Zaxby Porsche as he locks up a brake. The pressure on these two leading Porsches, because Zonta in third place is looking threatening. The Paynos is there as well, but Alan McNish really knows his way around the Donington circuit. He's looking very confident and very smooth as he comes out of the S's, plunges downhill once more to the Melbourne hairpin, leaves his braking as late as he dares, twitches the car right, and Altsson is the one who's under pressure. Altsson in second place, being pushed hard by Zonta now. Schneider's taken an extra place. Schneider goes past Thiemann to take 7th place now. The silver Mercedes passes the blue one, and I can't see any damage on that yellow mirrored silver Mercedes. That's an awful lot of places. Remember, he said before the race he wanted to finish in the top 5. That's not the way to set about it. This is the way for setting about a Porsche 1-2, but Zonta doesn't like it. Zonta in third place is really putting the pressure on Uwe Altsson now. McNish easing away, but Altsson's going to have to keep the door shut if he's going to keep Zonta behind. He leaves the door wide open. Zonta just comes down the inside under braking and easily takes second place from Uwe Altsson. The silver Mercedes of Ricardo Zonta up into second place, still McNish leading, Zonta in second place, Altsson in third place, Brabham in the silver Paynos, there it is fourth. That's the leading quartet. One of the blue V12 Mercedes in fifth place, which is the car of Bouchou. And now we ride with Ricardo Zonta. He can see McNish, the leader, ahead. That's his prey. That's the car he's got to close on. And the car that this silver Mercedes, the one with yellow mirrors, which is Bernd Schneider, the car that he has got to close on is Bouchou's blue Mercedes, and he's doing it very, very fast. I think we're going to see Schneider once he gets past Altsson. Altsson swings left into the S's, right out of the S's, and down the hill. This is where Altsson is vulnerable. Schneider's going to have a go, I am sure. Yes, he is. Headlights blazing, and once again, Altsson doesn't seem to defend his place at all. He just lets Schneider go by. So Schneider up to fourth, and this is Zonta having a real go as they come round Goddard's. This is the battle for the lead. Alan McNish still magnificently leading for Porsche on his home ground, but Ricardo Zonta is pushing down to Redgate. The puffs of flame from the exhausts as McNish comes down the gearbox, accelerates hard out of Redgate corner. There's a slower car to lap. Now Alan McNish is so good with these back markers. He's sneaking through as they go into Redgate, and yes, the back marker briefly delays Ricardo Zonta. He's wonderful in traffic, is Alan McNish. That was how he managed to get ahead of Zonta a couple of weeks ago in Japan, and Zonta knows that it's going to be through this traffic that he's got to hold on to McNish. It's a battle for third place now. Schneider goes through on the inside, or does he? Brabham doesn't leave him very much room, but Schneider gets through. Schneider, who was 8th at the end of the first lap, is now up to third place. But Alan McNish, our leader, is going to have to serve this penalty, and McNish is coming into the pits. Alan McNish peels off to come into the pit lane. He's going to be held stationary. The marshal starts his stopwatch. He's got to wait there for 10 seconds. Another marshal in front of him with a stop sign. And when his 10 seconds are served, he'll be back in the race. And the 10 seconds is served. Away he goes. 2 black rubber lines as a no doubt furious Alan McNish powers down the pit lane, rejoins just behind the green Porsche of Armin Hahne. That means he's in 9th place, and he's behind all the GT1 cars except for Jeff Lees recovering after that spin in the McLaren. Zonta, therefore, is our leader. We ride with him. He's coming up in amongst that GT2 battle, still led by the Marcos, and Marcos not giving Zonta very much room as they go down through Craner curves, and Schneider is right there too. The 2 Mercedes all over this GT2 battle as Schneider passes Wendlinger. Behind them, clambering into number 1, is the lanky Australian Mark Webber, with Bernd Schneider helping him with his safety belts. They've got the tyres done on number 2. He's going to be out first. He's stalled it. Ludwig has stalled the car. Can he restart it? He does restart it. Ludwig gets away, an extra little delay, but still, Ludwig in the number 2 car comes out of the pits just across the bars of Mark Webber in the number 1 car. So Ludwig is the leader, Webber now in 2nd place. Yannick Dalmas is 3rd in the Alan McNish Porsche. And here's that controversial start again. The lights go green, McNish is instantly up with the 2 Mercedes, but let's hear now from Alan himself.
Alan, what's your view of what happened at the start?
Well, I did get a good start, there's no question. The green light came on and we had very good response, and I managed to leap into the front at the first corner. The FIA, who are the governing body, judged that was actually a little bit too quick. They said that I overtook a Mercedes prior to the start-finish line, which personally I don't think was correct. I saw the green lights and I went and got a good run at them. But that's a judgment. It's too late. We had a 10-second stop.
Stopped out on the circuit. Eric Bernard out of the car, and the marshals now wheeling it away. But Mercedes still running, 1st and 2nd. The Bernd Schneider Mark Webber car, with Mark Webber at the wheel, has now taken the lead from Klaus Ludwig in the number 2 car. And in comes Bernd Mailander in the V12, the blue V12 person car. Mailander already out of the car, and Christophe Bouchou manhandling his seat back in so that he can take over to finish the race. And there's our leader. Mark Webber brings in the number 1 car. Bernd Schneider undoing his belts for him, eager to get back into the car and back out onto the circuit. In fact, Schneider almost going over the top of Webber in his anxiety to get into that car. He's in the cockpit now. Webber helping him with his seat belts as they refuel the car, and there's a battery by that Bouchou Mailander car. They've obviously got a problem there. Yes, they're going to take off that elegantly painted rear engine cover with its dramatic depiction of what's underneath, painted on the car. And meanwhile, Klaus Ludwig still on the circuit. There he is in number 2. Klaus Ludwig has the lead. Zonta having a splash and dash too, just the same for the 2nd Mercedes, but so dominating is their lead that they're both able to indulge in the insurance policy. Very slow away, Zonta. Took him a while to get underway. There's Norbert Haug, the Mercedes competitions boss. Oh, somebody's going to be in trouble for leaving something in the pit lane. And Ricardo Zonta safely back after his stop. He was very slow out of the pits, which concerned us, but there he is lapping Jeff Lees, who's in the 7th placed McLaren. He's 4 laps down, is Jeff Lees. But these Mercedes now have got no real opposition. Alan McNish and Yannick Dalmas are in 3rd place in the Porsche. They're a fair way back. Driving like the champion he is, sweeping through the downhill section, the Craner curves, through the old hairpin, under Starkey's Bridge and on towards McLean's. This magnificent lightweight V8 Silver Arrow Mercedes-Benz. And look, he's just set the fastest lap of the race, this race in the race, just to show that even though he's under no pressure at all, he can really turn in a quick time around Donington, just for the hell of it, just for the joy of it. Bernd Schneider, one of the great sports car drivers of the decade. He also had a brief period in Formula 1, let's forget. But now he's in the S's, he's out of the S's, he's got the steep downhill run down towards the Melbourne hairpin, and that Melbourne hairpin will then take him back up the hill. He's in the Melbourne hairpin now, hard on the brakes, the slowest corner of the circuit, back on the power, up through the gearbox of the CLK Mercedes. He's just got the final left-hander at Goddards, which stands between him and what will be the 7th victory in 7 starts for the Mercedes team. The Marcos Porsche battle goes on ahead of him, and he takes the checkered flag. Celebration in the Mercedes-Benz pit. Schneider and Webber win from Zonta and Ludwig, and Alan McNish salvages some glory for Porsche in 3rd place.
Here's confirmation then, yet another 1-2 for the Works CLKs. Alan McNish and Yannick Daumas once again 3rd. We did have some excitement 2 corners from the flag in GT2. The Porsche of Conrad and Hager handing 2nd place to the British-built Marcos. But poor old Justin Bowe, he finished 4th after that late stop-go. So in GT1s this time, it's Bernd Schneider leading the Silver Arrows home. This 1-2 means it will be a Mercedes driver that takes the honours in the Drivers' Championship. No wonder they're already getting the beers in. Which of these top 4 men it is remains to be seen, but there'll be no team orders from now on with 3 races to go. The sports cars have moved on from Donington to the A1 ring in Austria. Once again, your commentator is Simon Taylor.
Well, the Mercedes-Benz CLKs have carried all before them this season, and in the last round at Donington, they clinched the Manufacturers' Championship with 3 rounds still to go. Mercedes racing boss Norbert Haug says no more team orders. His drivers can now fight it out for the driver's title. So it's significant that Ricardo Zonta has out-qualified team leader Bernd Schneider and got pole position by a 1/4 of a second. The Silver Arrows on the front row then, and the Pénaus has qualified 3rd, with Frank Lagorce ahead of the Bouchou Mailander Mercedes. Best Porsche is the Zakspeed GTI of Michael Bartel's 6th, ahead of McNish and Muller on the 4th row, and Jeff Lees in the Bashir McLaren is on row 5 with the other Zakspeed Porsche. Fastest GT2s were the Hertgen Porsche and Coroy's Marcos, which set the same time precisely. Well, they're coming round to complete their rolling lap on this beautiful forest-clad circuit. The lights go green, the 2 Mercedes at the front move, and it's Klaus Ludwig with the red mirrors on the inside, Schneider and the yellow mirrors on the outside, and Ludwig it is who's nosing ahead, and one of the blue Mercedes coming up the inside. That was Thiemann, but amazingly everybody gets through. One of the Porsches getting pushed very wide by the Pénaus. That was Jörg Müller's car, but somehow they've all got through that first uphill right-hander. It's Mercedes 1, 2, 3 and 4, the 2 silver cars at the front. Ludwig leads Schneider, Bouchou is 3rd, Thiemann is 4th, then it's the Pénaus in 5th place with Christophe Tinzo starting in that car. The best Porsche is only in 6th place, that's Jörg Müller with Daumas in the car he will share with McNish. But look at Bouchou coming through. Bouchou goes into 2nd place. That's not in the script. And Schneider fights back. There's a collision between those 2 cars. Bouchou goes wide. Bouchou back on the circuit, having lost lots of places. But I think that was a real surprise for Bernd Schneider, who didn't expect one of the blue person Mercedes, one of the privately entered V12 cars, to come attacking him in the Works V8 on the first lap. Bouchou then rejoining in 7th place. There's Schneider still with this 2nd place, but all of that has helped Ludwig. We're seeing it again, and Schneider fighting back gets inside Bouchou and just elbows him aside, sandwiching the blue V12 Mercedes. He's tucked in the slipstream now. On go the brakes. He comes up the inside with the front of the Mercedes, dancing under braking, and as he goes into that tight right-hander, the Mercedes goes ahead. Up to 5th place now, Bouchou, which means the Pénaus is the only non-Mercedes in the top 4. Red mirrors is Ludwig, yellow mirrors is Schneider. Those are the 2 silver cars in the lead. There's Bouchou now in 5th place, and the car looks very unsteady under braking, but it's going very, very quickly. And Bouchou is driving like a man possessed. That charge up the inside of Schneider was quite extraordinary. We're riding now in the Pénaus. This is the left-hand drive Pénaus, the big thundering V8 front engine car with Christophe Tinzo coming down through the gear. tyres. Ahead of him, he's got Marcel Thiemann in third place. The Paynos is in fourth, and the other blue Mercedes is looming now in the mirrors of the Paynos. And the battle for the lead goes on down the start-finish straight. Three cars absolutely together. And some bodywork has just come off Schneider's car, but Schneider has got ahead. Schneider takes the lead. Yellow mirrors past red mirrors. Bernd Schneider takes the lead from Klaus Ludwig. Off, meanwhile, goes Jörg Müller in the number 8 Porsche. But it was quite significant that a piece of bodywork came off the front of Schneider's car. We're seeing it again. One of the black carbon fibre winglets on the front of the nose of the car, which helps the downforce. And I wonder if that's going to give a handling problem to that car. Well, it doesn't seem to be worrying Bernd Schneider at all. Bernd Schneider in the lead. There is Klaus Ludwig in second place. Marcel Thiemann in the blue V12 car is in third place. The Paynos is still fourth. Now, this was Jörg Müller going off. Watch by Yannick Dalmas. We ride with Dalmas as the GT1 Porsche goes completely awry off the circuit to the right. It's now back in the pits. They've got the front bodywork off and they're working on Jörg Müller's Porsche. So that Paynos gets alongside, neatly boxes Marcel Thiemann in against a little GT2 Porsche as they lap it, and the Paynos moves ahead as they go down through the double right-hander with Tazo working away at the steering wheel. The Paynos is third. And Bouchou spinning. Bouchou does a complete 720 degrees on the outside of the final corner, rejoins with two black lines of rubber on the circuit. But Bouchou is having at the wheel, following Ludwig, and Ludwig spinning. Ludwig loses it. Klaus Ludwig has lost the second place Mercedes. The Paynos goes by, and the fourth place Mercedes spins also. That's Marcel Thiemann, and bearing down on them is the battle for fifth. Dalmas in the Porsche, Bouchou in the other Mercedes. Into the pits now comes Schneider. It's all happening. What a fantastic motor race. Schneider comes in out of the lead. Schneider out of the car. His Australian co-driver Mark Webber gets in. There's the second place GT2 car, the Viper, with Justin Bell getting into that car now, and in comes Yannick Dalmas. Yannick Dalmas coming in for Alan McNish to take over the number 7 Porsche. McNish has got a big job to do in that car, and look at this, the Paynos, Frank Lagorce in that car now, attacking Mark Webber, going past Mark Webber. Bernd Maylander there in the blue Mercedes. Maylander is up there too, and the Paynos goes ahead, and Maylander going round the outside. Mark Webber completely pushed to the back of that little trio. Frank Lagorce absolutely charging in the Paynos. Maylander tucked in behind him, and Maylander's going to have a go. Look at the way the Mercedes nods under braking, leaves his braking so late for that downhill right-hander, and Frank Lagorce has to let him go. We ride now with Lagorce, and that Mercedes just out of reach. Somebody's on fire. It's a GT2 Porsche. That's the car of Vido Russler, and not only is the car on fire, but the road is on fire behind it. I think it's leaking oil, and the oil behind it is on fire. That's another GT2 Porsche going off in sympathy, Horst Feldmayer's car. Well, now, while all this is going on, the leader, there it is, the car with red mirrors, the Mercedes of Ricardo Zonta, because Zonta has taken over from Klaus Ludwig. And that number 2 Mercedes did an incredibly quick stop for that driver change. The car was refueled, they didn't change the tyres. Now, this Österreich ring, or the A1 ring as we have to call it these days, is very, very smooth indeed. It's very kind to tyres, and they decided that the number 2 Mercedes would not change tyres. The Bernd Schneider car with Mark Webber on board has changed tyres. Of course, not a frustrating year as far as Le Mans was concerned. Alan McNish, a magnificent winner of the Le Mans 24-hour race. But in these FIA GT Championship races, the GT1 Porsche just hasn't had the speed of the Mercedes. And only occasionally has Alan McNish been able to get in among the Silver Arrows. And then, as we saw in Japan, as we saw at Oschersleben, it's ended in frustration. Here's Ricardo Zonta, the man that upset Alan McNish so much in Japan. And Zonta, like McNish, is doing a double stint. Zonta will drive the car to the end of the race, and they didn't change tyres even in the second stop for that number 2 Mercedes. In the pits now, the Armin Hahner, Andreas Schelt, Zakspeed Porsche. Now look at this. This is Bernd Mailander coming out of the pits and clouting the barrier, clouting the Armco barrier in the pit lane and damaging that Person V12 Mercedes very severely. In fact, he's going to stop the car. He's out of the car. He's despairingly put that car, by a stupid piece of driving, out of the race. The mechanics can't believe it in the Person pit. He was coming out of the pits. He hit the barrier. Here's the Panos once more, and that car is past its best. I think it is smoking badly. There's a lot of oil on the back of the car. You can see the smoke, and he's slowing. He's definitely slowing. The McLaren goes by, so does the Zakspeed Porsche, so does Alan McNish in the Works Porsche. Meanwhile, in GT2, we have a new leader. The number 52 Viper has passed its Beretta Lamy teammate. This is Carl Wendlinger and our own Justin. Great victory for Klaus Ludwig, who there he is, watching from the pits. His final European race, remember, and Ricardo Zonta, and these two still have a chance of overhauling Bernd Schneider and Mark Webber before the end of the season. It's their last chance, in fact, in GT, because we know next year Zonta will be in Formula One, Klaus Ludwig will be in retirement, but now he comes through the final corner, does Ricardo Zonta. The checkered flag is waiting, and Ricardo Zonta wins here in Austria, turns on all his headlights to greet the Mercedes pit crew who are hanging over the barrier. It's another 1-2 for Mercedes, a great win for Zonta and Ludwig, second for Schneider and Webber, and Alan McNish was there again. McNish and Dalmas do finish third for Porsche.
The GT results look much the same every week. The two Works CLKs top of the pile, McNish in third for Porsche, and an honourable mention for Jeff Lees and Thomas Bucher claiming a point in their McLaren. British success in GT2's reigning world champion Justin Bell making the most of a rare drive, finishing first with Carl Wendlinger ahead of teammates Beretta and Lamy. It's a four-way fight for the driver's title in GT1s. Only the Mercedes men are in contention, so no wonder they're having so much fun.
Here at Homestead, they're on the rolling start lap now. In qualifying, Zonta has again pipped Schneider for pole. Behind the silver arrows are the Porsches of Jörg Müller and Alan McNish, just ahead of the silver Panos. And as they come off the banked oval, the pace car pulls away. The two silver Mercedes are there, so are the two white Porsches. The race is on, and look at Alan McNish coming up the inside of Jörg Müller. McNish goes into third place already. Schneider attacking Zonta down the inside, but Zonta has the lead. Schneider is second, McNish up to third place, Jörg Müller is fourth, and the Panos is there in fifth place as they go through the tight, twisting infield. Zonta pulling away already into a good lead. Meanwhile, behind the Panos, it's the two blue V12 Mercedes. That's Mailander's car, just behind Jean-Marc Gounon's car, and we're riding with Schneider now. That's not smoke in the cockpit, that's dry ice to keep him cool, because it's very, very hot indeed here. And ahead of Schneider is the silver teammate car, which is Ricardo Zonta. And remember, this is the battle for the championship between these two cars. Sawing away at the wheel. Look at that sequential gear change as he goes up the gearbox in this V8 lightweight Mercedes Le Mans Coupe. But Zonta it is who leads. The car with red mirrors, the number 2 car. The car with yellow mirrors, the number 1 car, is Schneider in second place. And the silver arrows fighting, not for the Constructors' Championship. Mercedes have already won that. They're fighting for the Drivers' Championship in this penultimate round in the United States of America. Zonta, Schneider, there he is in second place, with the two Porsches, McNish leading Müller third and fourth. Once more, down the gearbox goes Schneider, turning the car into that tight left-hander, piling on a little bit of opposite lock as he goes through the tight sweeps. Second gear here, now on the power as he comes onto the main straight, goes very, very close to the wall on the right-hand side of the car, back up through the gearbox once more, the dry ice keeping him cool. And as they go up to about 170 miles an hour on that short up, he's passed Jörg Müller for fourth place. Jörg Müller tucked in behind, and the Panos is going wide. The Panos goes wide, and Jörg Müller gets his fourth place back. Meanwhile, we're seeing a lot of smoke from one of the little GT2 911s. Franz Conrad's car, there it is, already in trouble, working its way, I think, towards the pits, and we're riding with Schneider once more. Down through the gearbox, Schneider in trouble. Schneider sawing away at the wheel. He nearly lost that car then. Just managed to gather it up, a great sliding oversteering lunge towards the outside of the track, and all of that has seen Zonta move further ahead. Let's see that again. This is Schneider turning into the left-hander, and watch the back end of the car start to get away from him, steps out of line, just there. But he does gather it all together again, but that's put Zonta, the car with the red mirrors, there he is, further into the lead. Zonta 1, Schneider 2, the two Mercedes, but Schneider has made a great recovery from that. Schneider now starting to close up, and we've got spots of rain here. It's clouding over, it's starting to look black overhead, and Schneider is determinedly making up for that mistake. Schneider absolutely on the limit. We've got one of the blue V12 Mercedes. Are they going to change the tyres? They're talking about it. It seems that they're talking about it, but Dalmas rejoins. Dalmas takes the car out, and now Schneider's in. That's the dry ice pack going into the passenger seat to keep him cool in that very, very hot cockpit. They're not changing tyres at all there, but they have got some wet weather tyres ready. The wet weather tyres are being wheeled out. In comes now the Jörg Müller Porsche, and ready to take that car over is Uwe Altzen. And it does seem that both the Porsches are going to stay on slicks, but there are wet weather tyres ready by Ricardo Zonta's car, which is there being refueled. And it seems that we're about to have a tremendous rainstorm because the humidity is rising, the clouds are lowering, and that's going to be the gamble. That's going to be the risk. Who is going to use what tyres? It is now starting to rain quite hard. Out come one of the Porsches, and there is Zonta's car, and they haven't changed the tyres yet on Zonta's car. The refueling is finished, and the wind is really getting up here. The weather is deteriorating by the moment as we ride now with the Australian Mark Webber, who's taken over Bernd Schneider's car, the #1 Mercedes, and he is on wet weather tyres, but Ricardo Zonta in that #2 car is on slicks still, and that's very treacherous. We've got both the Porsches back in again. The Porsches have decided one lap further on that it's completely wrong to be on slicks. They've come in one lap later to get the wet weather tyres that they should have had in the first place. There's one of the little GT2 Porsches, which has also fallen foul of the conditions. In just a few minutes, the track has become completely waterlogged, and Zonta's coming back in. Zonta needs wet weather tyres as well. The second Dutch Marcos has gone off up the escape road. There are people going off absolutely everywhere, and the safety car's coming out. We've got the safety car coming out now, and there are wet weather tyres going on Ricardo Zonta's car. Zonta, incidentally, unlike Schneider, doing a second stint, but of course he has had to stop twice compared to the Schneider-Webber single stop. There's a Viper coming into sight, going very slowly. He's got a cone stuck under the front of the car. Safety, oh, and he drives onto the grass, I think deliberately, just to get rid of it. That's rather neat. That was the Olivier Beretta Viper, and now we look at the safety car with leader Australian Mark Webber in the Bernd Schneider #1 Mercedes sitting behind the safety car. And the safety car actually has been a bit of a blessing in disguise for Ricardo Zonta, because that will allow him to close up again after having lost so much time making a second stop. There is a Viper. It's a Viper. It thinks it's a Reliant Robin. It's on 3 wheels. That is the Hugh Chamberlain entered car with Dominic Chappell managing to get back to the pits on 3 wheels. And now the rain is easing off a little bit, and already the track is starting to dry. The safety car pulls away. The race is on again. Schneider comes through that tortuous exit to the infield, back onto the fast part of the circuit. There is Ricardo Zonta in second place, chasing one of the back markers. So as the green flag waves, Mercedes 1, Mercedes 2, Mark Webber leads Ricardo Zonta, and quite a traffic jam behind as we watch Zonta going through what is still a waterlogged section. Let's look at what happened in the infield as they came up to take the restart. They're 3, if not 4 abreast. Somebody's going to lose out. It's the Zack-Speed Porsche which gets squeezed and spins. Uwe Altzen managing just to avoid the back of Michael Bartel's Porsche as it goes harmlessly backwards onto the infield. And we look now at Uwe Altzen, who is in 4th place. It's still the silver Mercedes 1 and 2, the white Porsches 3 and 4. And we're seeing a replay of Ricardo Zonta, who's just got it very wrong in the second place Mercedes, going straight off the road. The car started to spin. He got it straight, understeered off, but he's back on the circuit now, still in second place. This is the Bouchou Mailander Mercedes, which has got a 10-second stop-go penalty for being a bit quick on the throttle when the safety car pulled off. And look, Zonta is back up with the leader again. Webber first, Zonta second, and they're absolutely nose to tail. The track is drying all the time. They're all still on the wet. This is bringing the number 7 Porsche in for a penalty. He was too quick when the safety car pulled off. He's got a 10-second penalty for that. The Panos has come in for David Brabham to take over from Eric Bernard, and Uwe Altson's got a 10-second penalty as well. Both the Porsches have been delayed. That is going to put the Panos up to 3rd place, and we're seeing a replay of the leader. What's this? This is the leader getting it all wrong. Mark Webber spins the leading Mercedes. Mark Webber goes all the way around 180 degrees. We're seeing it from his cockpit view as he turns into that right-hander, piles on the opposite lock, but it's too late. Klaus Ludwig goes by him, and as we see them now coming towards us, red mirrors ahead of yellow mirrors, Klaus Ludwig in the number 2 Ricardo Zonta Mercedes is leading Mark Webber in the yellow mirrored Bernd Schneider Mercedes, and this is the battle for the championship. No team orders between the two Mercedes drivers, remember, and Mark Webber is tucked into slipstream. He pulls alongside as they go past one of the back markers, but Ludwig just holds on. We're riding now with Webber. Webber coming down the gears once more, 6/10 of a second between the two of them, and look at him fighting away at the wheel. You sit close to the steering wheel in these big heavy cars. Still Ludwig leads, still Webber in second place, and coming through the back markers is the real skill here. The two cars almost tied together. It's the penultimate race in the championship. Either of the two driver pairings of these cars could end up the season champions, and still Ludwig in the twilight of his career. This is the penultimate race of a long and very distinguished career for Klaus Ludwig. He's announced his retirement. He's only got one more race to do, and he wants to win this championship. Meanwhile, the Vipers comfortably ahead in GT2. The Marcos is still there in 4th place, but the Claudia Hurtgen, Stefan Ortelli Porsche is in 3rd place. The Marcos now a lap down, and we've got a problem for one of the Mercedes. One of the Mercedes is off. It's Mark Webber. I can see it from here. There he is in the gravel, spinning his wheels. He's stuck. Mark Webber has gone off, and he's trying to get out. He's trying to get himself out under his own power. He can't, and there's Bernd Schneider watching from the pits, and he can't believe his eyes. This is a replay. We're riding with the Australian. He's steering with one hand, the other hand on the gear lever, trying to get down to the right ratio. He's in the gravel now, but as we see it now in real time, he is out of the gravel. He's got his door open, and here comes Klaus Ludwig, just as Mark Webber does regain the circuit at last, but he's lost almost 2 complete laps on the leader. It is 2 laps on the leader now, because Klaus Ludwig goes by. Lots of gravel coming off Mark Webber's car, but Ludwig, still in the lead, is now 2 laps ahead of Mark Webber. The Panos is up into 2nd place. A tremendous performance here has included this year that magnificent win in the Le Mans 24-hour race for Porsche. Nibbled at the edges of Formula One, never quite got there, but he's one of Britain's best drivers nevertheless. And this battle taking place almost a minute behind the leading Klaus Ludwig Mercedes, the Bernd Schneider Mark Webber Mercedes, with Schneider back at the wheel of that car, running in 6th place, still well behind the V12 Mercedes car. That isn't going to change Schneider's position, but what McNish is going to be more worried about is his own teammate, Jörg Müller, who is in 4th place but not far behind. Schneider lining up to pass McNish. He's going to do it very easily as they go down the straight. That's the indication that all is not well with the number 7 Porsche. As Schneider goes walking past it, Schneider still in 5th place, McNish still 3rd. And the Panos has gone off. The Panos is in the barriers. Eric Bernard has buried the Panos, the 2nd-placed Panos, deep in the tyre barriers. He's trying to reverse it out, I think. Yes, he's got the car going again. He buried that car in the barriers. What a shame. Lying in 2nd place, Eric Bernard sharing the car with David Brabham. The front is badly damaged, but he's running. And he's back underway again, bits of fiberglass falling off, gravel everywhere. Now surely he's going to have to bring that car into the pits for repairs, because bits of it are falling off everywhere. Schneider's going by there. Alan McNish is up with him. Alan McNish is going to go through into 2nd place. And off goes the bonnet. The bonnet's gone. The bonnet has gone. And McNish has gone by into 2nd place. That Panos is still in 3rd place. It's trailing the wiring of the headlights. It's extremely badly damaged at the front, but Eric Bernard is carrying on, it seems. and as bits continue to fall off as he trails all that wiring, he's got none of the aerodynamics that the tail would give him, but still he's pressing on, and behind him is Jörg Müller. The Panos is still in third place in its damaged state. Jörg Müller is behind him, closing fast, and Jörg Müller's on his tail, but Eric Bernard's fighting him off. Eric Bernard does not want to lose this podium position. The Panos drives on, lacking its front bonnet, trailing its headlight wiring, and still Jörg Müller is behind and hasn't got past it yet. Without its bonnet, it's still quick in a straight line. Now Jörg Müller is alongside. Jörg Müller forces his way through on that tight left-hander. Jörg Müller goes third. The Panos is pushed down to fourth. It's Mercedes 1, Porsche 2, Porsche 3. Panos still battered and bruised, but fighting on in full second. But for that mistake which sent him into the tyre barrier, it was nearly the best result ever for the Panos in FIA GT racing. Well, this is going to be the best result possible for Klaus Ludwig and for Ricardo Zonta. The young Brazilian started the race in the number 2 Mercedes, but for more than half the distance it's been driven by the veteran German Klaus Ludwig, and he's now on the final straight. The checkered flag is waiting. Klaus Ludwig weaves in delight as he comes over the start-finish line to win. There is Ricardo Zonta watching in delight from the pit lane. Klaus Ludwig and Ricardo Zonta win the penultimate FIA GT race of 1998. Porsches are second and third. Alan McNish pushed down to third in the closing stages. Jörg Müller brings his car home.
Two Works Porsches in second and third did look more competitive this time, and they've got one final chance to prove themselves and end Mercedes' unbeaten run. That's at Laguna Seca. The drivers' battle is going all the way. Klaus Ludwig and Ricardo Zonta enter the last race with a 4-point lead over their teammates. But Bernd Schneider won't give up his crown without a fight. Expect excitement in California.
Circuit on the Pacific coast in Northern California. The 27-car field is just going out on its warm-up lap, and it's the Ludwig Zonta Mercedes that's taken pole position by 2/5 of a second from the Schneider-Weber car. Alan McNish has put the Works Porsche on row 2 alongside the mighty Panos with David Brabham at the wheel. Then it's the second Works Porsche of Müller and Alsen and the leading V12 Mercedes of Mailander and Bouchou. And in GT2, the Claudia Hürtgen Porsche 911 is fastest. They're coming round now to complete the rolling lap. The pace car is in the pit lane. The race is on. The two Mercedes move, and it's Ludwig ahead of Schneider. The two Mercedes leading the field with slotting into third place Alan McNish. Schneider having a little look at the inside as they go through that first left-hander, but it is Ludwig who leads. It's Schneider in second place. Alan McNish well up there and pushing hard in third place. The Panos is also well up. The race is on, and with the two Mercedes at the front, it means the Drivers' Championship battle is running at the front of this race. McNish pushing hard in third place. That's the Hugh Chamberlain Viper off very early on. The Dutchman John Hugenholtz has put that in the gravel. Meanwhile, this is the spectacular downhill S-bend they call the corkscrew. The two Mercedes going through ahead of the Porsche, then the Panos and the Mustang off. That's the green Mustang of Daniel Draw, which has also gone into the gravel. But meanwhile, we're riding with Bernd Schneider, last year's champion, battling to be this year's champion. Ahead of him, the man who can beat him, Klaus Ludwig. Ludwig, 49 years old, about to retire. This is his second. Porsche has passed the number 1 Mercedes. McNish is second and indeed moving away. Mercedes 1, Porsche 2, Mercedes 3, and with McNish taking second place, we're seeing a replay. He managed to get inside Schneider on that long double right-hander, and there was nothing Schneider could do about it. McNish goes second, and that's bad news for Schneider. We're seeing now the GT2 battle once more, and the lead is going to change. The Beretta Viper going inside Coroyz's Marcos, that brightly coloured Marcos. It seems that neither Beretta nor Viper could do it with the back marker. McNish still in second place, but Schneider very close to him now. Suddenly McNish seems to have lost a bit of pace. Schneider seems to have found somewhere, riding with McNish now. More back markers to worry about. He goes past that 911. In his mirrors is Schneider looming one side, then the other. Now the short straight, and Schneider is poised to pounce. Schneider tucked in the slipstream. Now we ride with Schneider, and Schneider looking at the inside as they go into that tight left-hander. Down the gearbox goes Schneider, working away at the wheel, but McNish slams the door in his face. Then they accelerate away once more. Porsche in second place, Mercedes in third place, and of course what Schneider is worried about is that in the lead is the man that he needs to beat for championship points to get the championship title. Mercedes 1, Porsche 2, Mercedes 3, Paynos 4. There is the distinctive front engine Paynos grumbling on its V8 way with David Brabham at the wheel, and still Schneider waiting for his opportunity. Schneider perhaps having lost just a little bit of space in that last lap. McNish easing away from him slightly. We're looking at the two V12 Mercedes fighting over 7th place. Which one's going ahead? White mirrors leads blue mirrors. That means Jean-Marc Gounon has gone ahead of Bernd Mailander. He's off the road. Alan McNish from second place has gone off, and you see the telltale rubber streaks down the road. He swapped ends under braking. He's still stuck in the car. McNish off. We've got Bernd Schneider in the pits for his routine stop. As they wheel away McNish's car, Schneider goes out of the pits. A very quick stop for Schneider. He stayed in the car. He didn't change tyres, but now this is Ludwig, and Ludwig does get out, and Ricardo Zonta does get in. And are they going to change tyres? They do. Now that's most interesting because Schneider changed neither driver nor tyres, but Ludwig has changed both. Ricardo Zonta in that car waiting to go off. They're still changing the tyres. You're only allowed to use one mechanic each side for those tyre changes, very unlike Formula 1. It's a long and it's a slow stop, and Zonta stalled it. Zonta has stalled it further to increase the length of time that car spent in the pits, and now Zonta gets out. Schneider still leading the race, but Ricardo Zonta in the number 2 Mercedes chasing him hard with Mercedes 1 and 2. This is the battle for 5th place. The blue V12 Mercedes of Marcel Thiemann holding off the green Porsche with the red stripes over the back. That's the Zakspeed car of Max Angelelli, and Angelelli 6th, Thiemann 5th. Battle also for 3rd place ahead of them, which is the Paynos. There it is, of Eric Bernard now. He's taken over that car from David Brabham, and on his tail, Jörg Müller in the number 8 Porsche, the only works Porsche left in the race, and off goes the Paynos. The Paynos running wide there, and that has allowed Müller to go by into 3rd place. Eric Bernard pushed down into 4th place in the Paynos, and Alan McNish in the other works Porsche out with gearbox problems early on, having run in a magnificent 2nd place. We're watching the GT2 Porsche of Michel Hilger's battle now for 5th place. Angelelli sells Thiemann a dummy on the right, then dives past on the left and squeezes through to take that 4th place. The Mercedes pushed back to 5th place, and at once Angelelli is able to ease away in the green Zakspeed Porsche. Meanwhile, Bernd Schneider, our leader, is on the tail of Jörg Müller's Porsche, which is in 3rd place. He's trying to lap it, and Schneider has been stuck behind that number 8 Porsche for several laps now, and Schneider can't find a way by. Schneider's pace has been reduced because he's stuck behind the Porsche. Switch there from Müller, and that's what Schneider needed. Schneider gets past Müller at last because Müller made a tiny mistake. The car almost got away from him, and immediately Schneider was by. Here's a replay. Watch Schneider gesticulate angrily through his right-hand window at the errant Porsche driver as he goes by. Now we've got Bouchou back in the pits. They've given him a stop-go penalty, apparently for speeding in the pit lane, and Schneider coming into the pits now. You see him shrugging off his seatbelt. Schneider, who's done a double stint, is now coming in to hand over to his Australian co-driver Mark Webber. Schneider in the leading Mercedes, and he hasn't had a tyre change yet. He hasn't had a driver change yet. This is going to be a longer stop. Zonta too is going to have to stop, but Zonta won't need a change of drivers and perhaps won't need a change of tyres. It's very finely poised, this race. Schneider, the leader, in the pits. Zonta is going by into the lead, but Zonta too is going to have to stop any moment now. Mark Webber, the Australian, back into the car. There is Zonta in the pits now. Zonta is in. How quick is this stop going to be? They're not going to change the tyres, are they? They're certainly not going to change the driver. Zonta sitting in the cockpit waiting. One of the little 911s has gone off into the wall, and here is Zonta out, squirreling his way down the pit lane. It's very slippery there. There's a lot of oil on the pit exit, but Zonta safely back onto the circuit as the Zakspeed Porsche goes by. Oh, and Zonta getting out of shape. Zonta's off. Zonta off onto the gravel. Is he going to hit the wall? He just manages to stop the car before he hits the wall. He's fishtailing his way through the dust and the puddles. We're seeing it again from the driver's viewpoint. Understeering widely, then oversteering, twitching onto the dirt, and somehow he manages to nurse the car back onto the tarmac. That could have been absolutely disastrous for Ricardo Zonta, but he's back on the circuit, and his stop, as we expected, has been so much quicker than Mark Webber's, than the Schneider handing over to Webber stop. As the caption shows, they are split by the Altzen-Muller Porsche, but that is due its own pit stop. So basically, the Mercedes are going to be first and second with about 60 or 70. Norbert Haug shaking his head in disbelief as Webber comes up now to go through on the inside of Altzen, and they touch. Altzen slammed the door in the Mercedes face, but the Mercedes kept on coming. We're seeing a replay. It's a big impact between those two cars, but fortunately, where's going to end up the champion? Zonta. Second half of his double stint, headlights blazing as he works his way through these back markers. A back marker can spell disaster if he doesn't see you coming. And we wait to see the second place man. There he is, the yellow mirrors. That's Mark Webber in the number 1 car in second place, the car he shares with Bernd Schneider. Up the hill, up the gearbox. And that's Klaus Ludwig, who has finished his last piece of motor racing. He's retiring at the end of this race. He's done the first stint, and Klaus Ludwig is waiting to see whether he will end today and end his career as FIA GT champion, as his co-driver, Ricardo Zonta, goes on his way in the lead. Well, Bernd Schneider is watching from the pits as well to see how Mark Webber's getting on. 9.2 seconds the gap's now come down to. It's coming down, but I wonder if it's coming down enough, because we're nearly getting to the end of this wonderful race at Laguna Seca. Down through the corkscrew goes Ricardo Zonta, and just up the hill into the corkscrew goes Mark Webber. There's Klaus Ludwig, who's started to smile now. David Brabham in the Paynos in 4th place has been caught by Uwe Altzen in the 3rd placed Porsche. In fact, Brabham's got his left winker on to allow Altzen neatly to overtake him. And we see Zonta now. The gap is 8 seconds. It's still coming down, but Ricardo Zonta is starting to look very secure in that lead. There's not very far to go before the checkered flag. There's not very far to go before the resolution of the 1998 FIA GT Championship, and Ludwig really is beginning to believe that perhaps he could end his season in this fairy tale way. Zonta coming over the start-finish line now to start his final lap. Zonta crosses the start-finish line, and still Mark Webber pursues him as hard as he knows how. But now we watch the number 2 Mercedes, the one with the red mirrors, the one that has had Ricardo Zonta at the wheel since 1/3 distance. Bernd Schneider there with Klaus Ludwig. Schneider clearly thinks it's all over, and Zonta now through the corkscrew for the final time on this wonderful twisting road circuit here at Laguna Seca. A few back markers ahead of him, and half a lap to go before the checkered flag will greet him as champion. Zonta neatly into the left-hander, coming round now towards the pit straight, and the checkered flag is waiting. He goes towards the pit lane. He's greeted by the Mercedes crew, and Zonta is champion. Ludwig is champion. The FIA 1998 title is resolved, and there is Klaus Ludwig, who gets the cheers in the pits. Zonta celebrates in the cockpit. It's all over, and Beretta, the GT2 champion, has his own celebration with a magnificent donut to end the season.
Here's confirmation of that win for Ludwig and Zonta. It was close though. Mark Webber just 10 seconds adrift at the flag. A fitting finale to the career of a distinguished sports car driver. Klaus Ludwig finishing his racing days as a world champion. And for teammate Ricardo Zonta, it's just the beginning. We'll see a lot more of him next year in Formula One.